Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I really thought I'll be seeing you next year now, but here I am with another video. So today I want to discuss with you my 2025 TBR, which means books that are to be read, all the books that I want to get into the next year. But the catch is that these are all the books that I already own, which are either unread or half read. Because honestly, I have a lot of them and I really want to get into some of these books. But in February, we have the New Delhi World Book Fair coming up, and of course, that's gonna add to my TBR like anything. So, this is just the TBR for now until I go to the book fair and get some new books as well. So, without wasting any time, let's get into it. So, let us begin with nonfiction because that's something I don't read a lot, so the list is short. The first one is Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, and this is actually a half read book from my shelf. I started it a long while back, so I'll be starting it from beginning the upcoming year because I was finding it really interesting. The next book is Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. Of course, I think everyone has heard about this book. It was written during the time of during the reign of Hitler, and history is something that interests me a lot. And this again has been sitting on my shelf for so long, and I've read some some extracts from this book here and there, and they were so captivating, so I really want to get into it the next year. Another one is again a half read book. I think I reached midway, which is Dr. Cutress's Everything Nobody Tells You About Your Body. So Dr. Cutress, she's an influencer, a doctor and an influencer, and I've been following her for a lot of years now, and I find her insights on human body very interesting. She has a very fun way of explaining very complex concepts about your body, and I think it's essential that we get to know our bodies. And I don't know, for some reason we aren't always encouraged to do that, right? Especially about our reproductive system and all those things. We're just taught about it very formally in our schools, and that's about it. So yeah, she has a very interesting way of making everything sound super fun. And honestly, some of the things that she says in her book, because I've already read it halfway through, they'll actually make you laugh out loud. So what better way of learning about your body than just laughing and smiling along the way. So these were just the three nonfiction books that I'm planning on reading next year. But I am almost to the end of this book called How to Win Friends and Influence People, because I'm a big introvert and I think this is a much needed guide for me. So I'm almost to the end of it, and I'm hoping of finishing it by the time 2024 ends. But if I'm unable to do that, then this will be added to my nonfiction list of 2025. Now let's come to the biggest list, which is obviously the fiction list, and that is also divided into two categories. The first is novels and series, and the other is short stories. The first one is selected works of Kafka. Again, I've read Kafka in bits and pieces here and there, and they're always very captivating, very philosophical, and they make me feel, right? And that's why I bought this book, then I never got around to reading it, and next year I'm hoping to get into it. Another short story collection that I want to finish next year is Selected Stories of Amrita Pritam. I've heard Amrita Pritam's poems a couple of times, and the way she uses her words, it's just beautiful, and that's why I bought this book. And I think I read one or two stories and I loved them, so I'm hoping of reading it from cover to cover the next year. Finally, let's get into the list of fiction, standalone novels and series that I want to finish in 25. The very first one, which might also be my first read of the year, is Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. Now, I should have actually read it when it was prescribed to me during my undergraduation, but the syllabus was overwhelming and everyone actually skips on some of the novels, and I unfortunately had to skip on Crime and Punishment. I think I just read 20-25 pages out of this thick book, but it was actually very interesting, and I had gotten engrossed in the story, but then I had to leave it midway, and then I never got around to picking it up again. But next year I really want to finish it. The next one is a book series that I'm the most excited about getting into, and this is actually, there's a battle between Crime and Punishment and this series as to which one will be my first read of 2025. And if you follow me on Instagram and you watch my YouTube videos quite regularly, you've probably already guessed what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this box set of Game of Thrones. This was a birthday present this year, and now I never got into the whole Game of Thrones hype, when the series was trending, everyone was talking about it. There were reels and memes, and it was flooding social media. I just never got into it. I've not watched a single episode of the series. I've not read anything. I don't know much about the characters, so that is why I'm also very interested, because nowadays it's very difficult to not know things, not know something about a series which is trending, especially which has a Netflix adaptation or something. And so I'm lucky that I don't know much about it, and I go into it with just a complete blank slate. Very interested to start this. And it's been a very long time since I read a fantasy novel. I think the last I read was A Court of Thorns and Roses, and that too just the first part. So very excited of getting into a fantasy series. Up until now, Harry Potter is my favorite fantasy world. Let's see if this could compete with it. Another one is a classic which has been sitting on my shelf since so long. I got it from a book fair, which is Dracula by Bram Stoker. I am very interested in horror and gothic and all these genres, and I think Dracula is about that. And Dracula is one character we hear about so much, right? So I really want to get into the origins of it. Another one is a very intriguing story, which is The Time Traveler's Wife. I got this book when I read its blurb, and I want you to hear it as well because it's super interesting. This is the extraordinary love story of Claire and Henry, who met when Claire was 6 and Henry was 36, and were married when Claire was 22 and Henry 30. Impossible but true, because Henry suffers from a rare condition where his genetic clock periodically resets and he finds himself pulled suddenly into his past or future. In the face of this force they can neither prevent nor control, Henry and Claire's struggle to lead normal lives is both intensely moving and entirely unforgettable. How interesting is this? I think it could be a science fiction novel. I don't read a lot of science fiction, but the blurb is very interesting and I can't wait to dive into this one. Another one is a highly recommended book to me, which is Love in the Time of Cholera. But that is not the only reason I want to read it. The reason is the author, which is Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And this is, I know, one of his most popular works. But I actually read a much shorter work by him, which was a novella called The Chronicles of a Death Foretold. I read it because it was prescribed to me, and I absolutely loved it. The sheer talent of, first of all, writing a murder story where you already know who the murderer is, why the murder happened, when the murder happened, and everything, and still be interested in the story. That was one thing that captivated me a lot about Marquez's writing, and ever since then I've been wanting to read something else by him, and that's why I bought this. And as I said, it is highly recommended to me as well. And again, can't wait to dive into it. Last but definitely not the least are actually two novels from a series, which is Before Your Memory Fades and Before We Say Goodbye. So these are the third and the fourth novels in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. I've already read the first two, loved them. Very cozy and warm books, and I think perfect for, again, starting a new year, because they make you think, they make you introspect about a lot of aspects of your life. I don't know if I'll begin the year with them or not, but you could definitely do it. So yeah, I want to complete the series next year. There's another book which has released this year itself, I guess, which is Before We Forget Kindness or something like that. I don't have it. Once I get through these, I'll definitely be ordering that. So these were essentially all the books that I already own and I want to read next year. I hope I'm able to do it. Of course, with the book fair and more books being added to my TBR, I don't know how much will I be able to read out of it. But as I said in my previous video, the next year for me is going to be about enjoying the books that I get into and not just getting through books in a rush. So I'll be okay even if I do not get through all of these. These are just things I want to read, and whatever I do read, I hope next year I'll be more regular with my reviews and recommendations. So stay tuned, subscribe to my channel if you're someone who enjoys watching book reviews or who wants to watch a book review before you actually get a book. And now I think I'll see you in the next year. Bye bye.